welcome to Overtime Hockey Talk. My name is Mark Paul, and my co-host Justin Baker and I are here for you as the NHL has vanished from your life for now. But don't worry, we're going to talk about it. We are your NHL counselors here to assist you when there's, hockey has just kind of abandoned you. And Justin, how do you feel about that?
I feel depressed that people have to turn to us, but
there's worse things to turn to.
That's very true. We'll give you that.
I have heard that that alcohol sales are through the roof right now. So
yeah, another thing. This is funny too. So Kirsten and I, obviously, with the quarantine going on, we've been trying to look for ways to keep ourselves entertained, right? And a bunch of friends of ours are taking up 2 Nintendo Switches and playing, games like Mario Kart and, Animal Crossing apparently is a big one. I don't see the appeal in it, but whatever. And so we started looking for Nintendo Switch. We were thinking about buying them. Every store, Best Buy, Target, Walmart, everything online is sold out right now. And right now they're just, of course, people are jacking up the prices on eBay. So we can't even do that.
Can't even get one. I know. Xbox, Katie and I, we found some pretty fun games on the Xbox that we can play like local. So we played some game called Overcooked, where you got to make these meals and go super fast and run all over the screen, and the map moves on you. So then it makes it challenging to do what you need to do. That's been a really fun game for us to play. I mean, we burned hours of that game, and then we beat it. She's like, "Is that it? Is that all? The game's over?" It's like, "Yeah, it's okay. There's a second one, so we got to get the second one." Yeah, definitely. Just we've actually been going on hikes every day too. Discovered all these new trails. They're obviously not new. They've been there the whole time, but trails that are within 30 minutes of here that I really had never taken any time to go check out. So, hey, the quarantine happens, and what do? You just go for a hike.
All right. So on today's show, though, we are going to just kind of analyze this NHLPA player poll. Some things that, no surprise, there actually was quite a few. All right, same exact results from the year before. Big shocker. But I think we'll offer some of our own commentary on it, and we'll just kind of run through it all. And as conversation tends to go, we'll just kind of run with it. So, the first section of this player poll is an on-ice section. And they ask who is the best forward, and I don't think it's any surprise that the top forward is Connor McDavid, 68.35% of the vote. He's just running away with this now. I mean, I think the year before, Crosby was much closer to McDavid, but now McDavid running away with it. Crosby is second, 14.9, McKinnon at 6.6, and Kucherov at 2.8. And then there was a 7.9% for the other players. So what are your thoughts? Is McDavid? I don't think there's too much debate here. No, there's no debate. I mean, it's obviously Connor McDavid, and Crosby, well-deserved second place. I mean, I think last year he had about 17%, so drops a couple points there. And I think that's mostly due to Nathan McKinnon being as dominant as he has been for the Avalanche. A couple people probably swapped some votes out there. The one guy I'm kind of surprised not to see on this list with maybe a higher percentage is Leon Draisaitl. Or maybe even a Patrick Kane. I think for guys that, have been at the top of their game for so long, just a little bit of love. And I think maybe, you could chalk that up to a lot of the Leon Draisaitl Edmonton fans, giving their love towards Connor over the two of them, I guess, when you got to pick one or the other. So,
well, it's a player poll, so the fans are definitely not voting in this.
Right. I'm sorry. Yeah.
It's I'm sure. Yes, I'm sure they would. I mean, I would also think Draisaitl, probably the people who would pick McDavid go, well, McDavid's better than Draisaitl, but
yeah,
Draisaitl, if this was who is, I don't, it's because each person gets one vote.
I think if everybody got like vote your 1, 2, 3, that might, there's a chance that he might appear in there. But also, and maybe it shows that a lot of players do see Draisaitl as like, well, you're so good because you have McDavid alongside you. Like
you're the Malkin to McDavid's Crosby.
Sure.
Yeah.
I think the defenseman is a little bit more interesting in terms of, obviously there's 5 guys who get considerable votes, but top defenseman, starting at number 5, you've got Brent Burns still makes the list, 6.5%. That is surprising to me. We can come back to that. Drew Doughty, 6.54%. Ironically, both of them get the same percentage as the best defenseman, seeing as their history together. And then Roman Josi, 9%. And the top 2, you've got John Carlson at 21% and Victor Hedman edging everyone out by a considerable margin at almost 38%.
Wow. Yeah, Victor Hedman last year, he came away with this one too with 31%, and Doughty came in at number 2 with 20%. But Brent Burns again last year, he made the list, drops, probably loses about half of his percentage points and gets, Roman Josi jumps him. But John Carlson, obviously, I think everybody knew how underrated he was. But I think now because of the production that he's having this year, I think now a lot of people are starting to take note. A lot of other players are like, man, this guy's actually pretty good. And the one name, though, I'm surprised.
And last year he put up 70 plus points, 75 points already.
Still freaking good, but it's funny to me because like Brent Burns, we know there's lapses in his game, right? At when you talk about the defensive side of things, he's still prominent. He can still put up some points and still shoots the puck a lot, but. One guy I'm surprised not to see maybe on this list when you talk about Brent Burns making the top 5, I'm surprised Erik Karlsson maybe didn't get some votes over a guy like Brent Burns.
Well, I'm surprised that Mark Giordano won the Norris Trophy last year and he's not in here.
Right, yeah.
Granted, there's an extra 18.65% that is unaccounted for because it goes to other players. So there's a chance that they had 5% of the vote, which is still pretty significant. They just only show the top 5. Which I wish they showed everybody. Like I wish they showed every single vote because I want to see like who voted for Yuri Fisher as the top, or not Yuri Fisher. I don't know why I said Yuri Fisher. I was Yuri Fisher. Where did that name just come from?
The Detroit Red Wings. Stop it.
Oh, geez. Why am I totally blanking on the worst defenseman in the NHL?
The worst defenseman? Boy, that's a good question.
He's on the Red Wings.
On the Red Wings?
Why am I completely blanking here? That's how long it's been since I watched hockey. You know
Trevor
who I'm talking
Daley?
about. No, you know who I'm talking. This is like somebody sitting there and they're saying, I've done this before in a podcast, like in so many podcasts where somebody's
Danny DeKeyser
trying to think of something and they're like, it's on the tip of their tongue, and you're sitting there listening to it going, you freaking idiot. It's this. How do you not know this? It's so obvious who it is. And when I say the name, you're going to go, oh, yeah, how did I not think of Jonathan Eriksson? By far the worst defenseman in the National Hockey League. Anyways, yeah. I just want to see who makes a joke out of this poll and who actually takes it seriously. So I want to see all the names that were voted for. I feel like that would make this more fun. I'm gonna put in a request. Release the entire results. Okay, let's go to anything else you want to hit? Best defenseman?
Nah, I'm good. Let's go.
Okay, best goaltender. We have. I'll let you take best goaltender. Go for it.
Yeah, Carey Price edging everyone out again this year for a second year in a row. 41% last year, I believe he came in around 29-ish, 30%. Andrei Vasilevskiy moving up the charts with second at 17%.
Moving up the charts. I just like the way you said that.
Thank you. Followed by Marc-Andre Fleury and Sergei Bobrovsky, which shockingly, so last year we had at number 2 Pekka Rinne on this list. Obviously nowhere to be found in the top 4 here. Could be somewhere else in that 26.8% that we don't see, but it's surprising to me that Carey Price has such a larger gap this year when statistically he's maybe, over the last couple seasons hasn't been Carey Price-esque.
Yeah.
And maybe that's more to the team in front of him than anything. When you look at a guy like Sergei Bobrovsky, for example, who is just having a terrible year in Florida, but somehow manages to, get 5.6% of the votes. Maybe people think that he'll, eventually come around. But I would figure for a guy that, won the Vezina, plays, just such a great game, Andrei Vasilevskiy isn't, a little bit higher in terms of the amount of percentage points he's getting.
Yeah, the interesting thing about this the goaltending poll is you have, you've got 515 people voted on the best goaltender, and 26.8% of them didn't pick one of these four guys. So there's a huge percentage of a huge split amongst so many goaltenders. And I don't know if maybe players tend to pick a guy who gets them personally. I mean, just through years of playing, I know that there's certain goaltenders that it was frick, that guy's playing. Guys getting, certain goalies just get in your head. Goalies where you're even when you think you've beat them, they just come back with some miraculous diving across the crease and knock it out with the skinniest part of their sticks where the puck hits out. Crap like that, where a goaltender just seems to be this guy's the greatest goaltender of all time against me. And so I wonder how players vote. Do they go, well, this goalie is the one who has my number?
Yeah.
Or are they just saying, obviously if we want to just go purely based on statistics, well, we could just consult statistics. So I wonder if it's, who's the hardest goalie to score against personally is kind of maybe more how these guys are taking this. I don't know.
Yeah. And I think too, there's a lot to do with, other teams now having, these prominent starters like your Ben Bishops, your Darcy Kempers, guys that are just, Connor Hollebucks, the guys that are starting to emerge as quality goaltenders, right? And so I think you'll see a lot of guys splitting their votes. And I do think a lot of players too, they tend to, I would say if they've been with the franchise and been with that starter long enough, they'll be like, okay, this guy's the best goalie in the world and give it to them.
Yes, and if they did release all the results, which I would love if they did, but let's say they release all the results and you are Martin Jones in San Jose and you have no votes. You're going to go, what the frick, guys? There's 20 people on your team that vote and none of them voted for you. So
right.
I guess that's maybe why they keep those a secret, as they don't want everybody to know who the league, you'd be able to figure out pretty quick who the league thought were the worst goaltenders in that list. The forwards, not so much. Forwards and defensemen, I mean, who cares? If several players don't get the best vote, I don't think that, people are walking around with delusions of grandeur thinking that they're the best forward when they're a fourth line guy. I don't think that's a problem. Okay, so the next question is, if you need to win one game, who's the one player, any position, you would want on your team? 3.3% went to Patrice Bergeron. 4.1% go to Nathan McKinnon, who's never won anything. So that's interesting. Connor McDavid, 30.5%. has won one playoff round. And then finally we get to first place, Sidney Crosby, 44%, who has 3 Stanley Cups, scored the game-winning goal in overtime in a gold medal game, and to me is the runaway pick, and he should be for this one. What are your thoughts on the guys that were picked for this particular portion?
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm surprised Sidney Crosby doesn't have a larger percentage of votes, only because, one, we talk about, yes, Connor McDavid, obviously the most talented player in terms of forwards, but hasn't won anything, right? You've got the one playoff round, and that's it. And Crosby's got all the hardware, all the accolades, and he's always shown up in the clutch. And so why would you not want a guy who's still at the top of his game to be that one guy for you? Now, I understand why maybe we don't see, goaltenders on here. Obviously, defensemen, they're not really going to get it done because it's a goal scorers league now. And so, maybe one guy I would say I'm surprised not to see on here would be maybe an Alex Ovechkin. But again, you look at how little the votes were in terms of 3.3% for Bergeron, and so that other missing 18%, I'm sure those guys got in there somewhere. But maybe an Ovi I might put on here, maybe even a Ryan O'Reilly at this point.
The way he played in the playoffs last year.
Yeah, but no doubt my runaway winner, I would have at least expected to have at least 50% of the votes would have been Sidney Crosby for sure.
Yeah, I think 20 years ago, I feel like it would have been maybe a little more. 20 years ago, Dominic Hasek, Martin Brodeur would be on this list. 100%. Why don't you see goalies on this list? Is it because are those two guys, if you took both of them and put them now, I think they would still be as dominant. I think Hasek would still be unbelievable if you took him then and you put him now. It's the one position where you go too far back and you kind of run into guys that played a total it was just a completely different game. They didn't even have the same kind of equipment, but it's interesting that there are no goalies anywhere close to this list. When really those goaltenders, if you get a goalie who's hot, you don't lose.
Right.
If your goalie doesn't make a mistake, you don't lose, right? If your forwards make a mistake, you still have a chance of winning. So ultimately, if your goaltender is the best player on the ice, you win.
Yeah, more times than not. That's
interesting that nobody wanted a goalie for that particular question. Okay, let's go to the next one. Who's the most complete player? The same names appearing. Crosby at number 1, 45%, which is impressive. 25% for Bergeron, 7.5% for Barkov, and 5.3% for your boy Ryan O'Reilly.
Yeah, I'm surprised his percentage isn't a little bit higher. We know what the guys at the top bring. Obviously Sidney Crosby can do it at both ends and do it so well. But Ryan O'Reilly's really stepped up, I think, lately, and he's kind of shown that he's always been this good for so long since his time in Colorado. But Bergeron, I don't know. We know how good defensively he is, but to me, his offensive side of the game, I don't know if I'd put that as complete as a guy like maybe Ryan O'Reilly, or I don't know, even
Barkov. Barkov for sure.
Yeah, obviously Bergeron's been doing pretty well playing alongside Marchand and Pasta, but before that he wasn't really the dominant offensive player that he is right now. And is that because he's playing with guys like Pasta now? I don't know, but you can't argue with him being on the list regardless. And to me, I think obviously Sidney Crosby is again the runaway winner in this category for me. So kind of surprised not to see a couple other guys a little bit higher in terms of percentage points when, surprisingly no Connor McDavid on here. We know he doesn't really have the defensive side of his game tuned in yet, but I'm surprised he maybe didn't get a few more votes just because of how good he is offensively.
Yeah, no Kopitar, who's won 2 of the last 4 Selke trophies as well. It's funny, Crosby has no Selke trophies.
That's true.
And you know why? Because the Selke trophy is you aren't that good, but you're good defensively and you put up points, so we're going to give you this trophy. In reality, Crosby, he probably should have a bunch of Selke trophies. It's just got it's got to be the weirdest trophy. The weirdest trophy, because it's, what does it mean to be really good defensively? You're a good forward, but you don't put up a lot of points? Kopitar put up 92 points the year he won it a couple years ago, but
I got the privilege of watching Pavel Datsyuk do it so well for so many years, but knew every time this guy, I watched him so many times steal the puck from somebody and just turn the play around, and he still managed to put up 90 points, 80
he
points.
Had 97 points the 2 years in a row that he won it. He won it the third year, 70 points. But outside of Kopitar with 92 and Datsyuk with 92 point seasons, no one has had more than 90 points Only one player with more than 80 points that has won this award since Fedorov won it in 95-96 with 107 points. Of course, he won it with 120 points as well. But yeah, it's funny. It goes back to the Bob Gainey stuff. Bob Gainey won this award 4 times in a row in its creation, and he had 31 points, 38 points, 33 points, and 47 points. Doug Jarvis won it in 83-84 when guys were putting up hundreds, like Gretzky literally putting up hundreds of points. Doug Jarvis had 13 goals and 29 assists. The following year, Craig Ramsey had 12 goals, 21 assists.
That's just crazy.
Yeah, it seems as though this trophy is a very strange trophy. Some guys have won it who you're like, okay, yeah, totally. Another guy like Rick Meagher in 89-90. Don't even know, never heard of the guy before, not once. He's a 36-year-old center for the St. Louis Blues. He scored 8 times, and had 25 points and won the Selke. What? What a stupid trophy. All right, maybe we're giving more. It's becoming a little bit more thought out with the advanced statistics. There's at least some like, okay, now you can point to some things that aren't goals and assists that point to a good defensive player. But my goodness, how does a guy with 25 points win an award when other people have over 100 points? And many people have over 100 points. That's crazy. Anyways, best trash talker is, no surprise, Brad Marchand, Drew Doughty, Ryan Reeves, Patrick Maroon. And we're just going to do worst trash talker as well, because this is just, they go hand in hand. Worst trash talker, also Brad Marchand, Drew Doughty. PK Subban makes this list, and then really random Nick Cousins sneaks in on here.
Yeah, Nick Cousins is a weird one to just kind of quietly pop in there, but there's a lot of stuff obviously we don't hear on the ice that maybe the mics will pick up per se, but as I'm sure there's a whole bunch of things said. The one name I am surprised not to see on this list, given the little quote unquote trash talking rivalry between Drew Doughty, is Matthew Tkachuk. Not to see his name pop up on this list because he's been known as a bit of an agitator, a bit of a trash talker lately.
It's true. Now, in terms of other votes, I mean, best trash talker, there was 45% other people voted. For the worst trash talker, 70% of the vote went elsewhere. And definitely the fewest amount of people voted for that one. Only 321 out of, I think, best forward was like 560 people. So, I mean, it's, not everybody's voting on that. Some people probably just go, I don't know. I don't care.
I would feel a lot of people probably with these two categories, probably outside of like your guys like Drew Doughty and Brad Marchand, probably vote for guys on their team, especially for worst trash talker. They're just trying to get a rise out of someone on their team if they do happen to see the results.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And now I really like this next question. It's different than anything we've seen, I think, before. Of all players, past or present, who would you pay to see play? The only player who made it to the top 4 that currently plays is Connor McDavid, 7.8%. And you've got Mario Lemieux, that is, not Claude Lemieux, at 9.24%. Bobby Orr, 15%, and Gretzky, 31.8%. I think that's a pretty cool list. Anybody that you would pay to see play that you've never seen play before?
Yeah, I honestly, and there's a whole nother 36-ish percentage of votes that obviously aren't shown here, but I would honestly say there'd be a lot of like guys from an early era of hockey, right? Guys like your Gordie Howes, maybe your Tim Hortons or Terry Sawchucks, guys that I grew up idolizing but never really saw play outside of little clippets of videos online, and I would definitely love to see those guys play. Obviously, I've watched Mario Lemieux, I've seen bits of Wayne Gretzky. Bobby Orr would be one of those guys too. Again, that I never really saw play live at all, and I would just love to see him play.
Yeah, or like a Maurice Richard or someone that
absolutely
just dominated. I think it would also be really fun to be able to go and watch games from like the 30s and the 20s where like things were just developing. Just to like if we could just go back in time and go, they were freaking horrible. Or like, or how good were they really? I don't think that we're like, obviously guys that were athletic then would be athletic now. I think that given the right advantages, guys who are good then could also be good now. But I think it would be fun to be able to go and see some of those games. That's actually something that you can do right now. NHL.com, I believe, you can go back and watch a bunch of old games, and they have it all for free right now. So my dad was telling me, I was watching this game from the 79 playoffs, so like the Bruins and the Canadiens, the one where, at the beginning when there used to be Coach's Corner Rip, when like it shows Don Cherry like putting his hands out and clapping and like putting his hands out, kind of like looking at the refs like what the heck. That was always like one of his things in the little montage before it started. And he was watching that game. He's like, dude, that was one of the best games I've ever seen. He watched the whole thing.
That's great.
So, okay, next one. Another kind of cool question. Would you like to see players' personalities expressed on their equipment? And if so, how? Helmet, 3%, sticks, 4%, skates got a whopping 40%. Your thoughts on this?
It's interesting. I honestly am surprised I don't see helmets with a lot more, more of the votes, just because I think from a goalie standpoint, right, that's where goalies get to express themselves a little bit, right? They get to put their own twist, their own, image, brand, whatever you want to call it, on their helmet. A lot of guys obviously do this with, putting team logos or doing something cool. But, I would think as a player, maybe you would always have looked back at the goaltenders and be like, man, I wish I could do that with my helmet. So why not do it now when you get the opportunity to vote for it, I guess? Yeah,
I mean, it would look stupid on TV, I think, if everyone had something. And there is also a yes and a no portion to this. 53% said yes, 47% said no, and that's out of 530 people. So I think there's still a large group of people in the league that just they don't want to see the customization. They don't care. But I mean, would I be okay with like some little thing on your stick? I mean, I guess you could. I don't know what the rule is for your customization of your stick. Like, can you only have certain color sticks?
That's true.
I've never heard it. Like, what if you were like, I want a green stick? I don't know why you would. Or like, I mean, guys have their names on it and stuff. I mean, what's stopping you from putting like your picture on your stick?
Yeah, that's true. I know Ovechkin always had his personality with that dark gray shaded visor, and his yellow laces on his skates were a big thing when he came in.
Yeah, the one thing I don't like is that you can't tuck your jersey in. You remember Gretzky used to tuck his jersey, and that was like all the rage. That's like when it became such a cool thing to do. Tuck the one side of your jersey in. Like Ovechkin did it. Remember when he first was in the league, he always tucked his jersey, and now you can't. I think that's unfortunate.
Yeah, I agree. I think, Gretzky's in his era anyways, I think that was a way for him to kind of get away from people because you could grab at guys a little bit and keep them from, getting a burst of speed. And so that had its advantages.
For sure. Who is the best female hockey player in the world? Number one, Marie-Philippe Poulin gets the top pick at 39%. Hillary Knight, 36%. Kendall Cone-Schofield, who was the one in the fastest skater competition, who actually beat a couple guys in the NHL, 15%, and then Emily Matheson at 1%. I'm going to be honest, I don't follow women's hockey too closely, but this list looks about right to me.
Yeah, I would agree there too.
And I mean, frankly, other is 6.85%, so there weren't too many other votes. Like, this is kind of the landscape of women's hockey. These are the best players in women's hockey, so I think if you know more about women's hockey, let us know. If you want to come on the show and talk it, we'd love to be educated at OT Hockey Talk. Okay. Off ice, would you be in favor of a relaxing game day dress code similar to the NBA? 73% said yes. So I'm sorry to the 27% of the league that is over the age of 33, but I think that you're all by yourself. I think it'd be fun if they could have more flexibility in their style.
Yeah, no, I agree, but I do think there needs to be still a little bit of like, hey, don't show up in like sweatpants and t-shirts. But ultimately, yeah, I think it would be great for guys like, your PK Subbans and your Henry Lundqvists, who are very well-dressed people, to be able to, kind of show off their personalities a little bit that way.
Yeah, at the same time, I don't know how much I personally care. I feel like you should be able to, like, I guess you need to have a tie, right? Is that kind of the standard?
Yeah, a little bit.
I feel like as long as you have clothes on, I'm good. Just come to the rink however you want. That'd be my opinion. Okay, funniest player in the NHL: Keith Yandle, 17%, Doughty 6%, Marchand 5%, and Kessel 4%. Other 64%. So obviously,
64.
But Keith Yandle, considered the funniest man in hockey, almost 20%.
Yeah, that's strange. It's funny. I think if Roberto Luongo was still in the league, he would obviously probably get a majority of the votes. His Twitter is just always phenomenal. But yeah, I never really like read any tweets from Keith Yandle. Don't really see much from him, so I don't really know, to be quite honest. And I think maybe that's more of an you got to be in the in crowd to figure this one out. I mean, we know about Phil Kessel and his hot dog antics and the jokes there, so that one, no surprise to me.
Yeah. Okay, so which players have the best bromance in the league? I like this one. Top one goes to David Perron and Ryan O'Reilly, which of course they had their Halloween costumes when they dressed up like each other. It was pretty epic. Joe Thornton and Brent Burns, the Beard Buddies, and Austin Matthews and Mitch Marner. I think that one's probably here to stay. If they ask this question for a while, they'll probably move up the list as we go along. They're definitely the two youngest guys. Matthew Tkachuk and Drew Doughty. I like that they appeared on there. 3%. Jamie Benn, Tyler Seguin, and then Brad Marchand and Patrice Bergeron. Other 72%.
Yeah, that's the big point out for me, is the other right there. I mean, obviously, you don't see a lot of these guys. Obviously, a lot of hockey players hang out with other hockey players, but you don't really like see the bromance that often, on the ice and guys on the bench. And I think the funny one for me is the Matthew Tkachuk, Drew Doughty. I feel like people are just screwing with them because they're at each other a little bit this season. So that one, I'm loving it.
Yep. Best player to follow on social media, PK Subban. I would agree. Alex Ovechkin always has some pretty interesting takes, especially because he totally comes from a different political landscape as well, being from Russia, and he's a big Putin supporter. So it's just really weird to see him sometimes talk about Russian politics. And you're like, what is happening? How no American-born person could get away with talking positively about Putin and not just be ripped to shreds.
Right.
Brad Marchand, 4%. Max Domi, 4%. I think Brad Marchand has some clothing line or something like that I think is growing. Max Domi, I don't think I follow him on any social media, so I don't really care very much about current players and their social media, unless it's something pretty radical about something that's going on with their team or something. But I don't really care what some player's doing at home when he's not playing.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you on that one. I mean, it's nice to see, there are some funny things. I think I remember early on, Alex Ovechkin, I started following him because I'm not sure if you remember a few years back when the Mega Millions lottery got over $1 billion. And there was a video he posted where he went in and bought $1,000 in lottery tickets to try to win it.
That's funny. Wouldn't that be hilarious if, if Ovechkin wins the millions, wins $1 billion, just retires? I forget it.
So that's the kind of stuff that I would be keen on seeing. But outside of that, like in your daily lives, especially now, like I don't really care. I'm with you on that one a little bit.
Which player isn't on social media but should be? 25% goes to Sidney Crosby. Then Joe Thornton, Tyler Ennis, and Jay Bouwmeester get some love there. Tyler Ennis is probably the most random person outside of Nick Cousins on this entire poll.
All right.
I don't know what Tyler Ennis does that would make him so interesting, but hey, you got on this list.
There you go.
I would like if Sidney Crosby I would follow Sidney Crosby.
Absolutely.
Him on Spit and Chicklets was great. So if you haven't heard that episode, I suggest going back, digging it up, and listening to it because it's well worth the listen. Especially if you like hearing some insider stuff, and of course him and what's his name on the show who played with them. They talk quite a bit. Who is the best nickname? Tuna Tatar at 8%, Pasta Pasternak at 7%, the Bread Man at 5%, and Christian Stinky Fisher at 2.69%.
And then, of course, you've got other at 76%.
Yeah. I mean, there's lots of nicknames. None of them are. I mean, I think that my favorite one's Pickles.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's my favorite one. But
yep.
I don't know how Christian Stinky Fisher got his. I feel like I need to go look that up.
That's a good question. I think I love Tuna Tatars. I mean, just because as a Red Wings fan, he's had that since his days here. So it's always been a favorite of mine for sure.
Yeah, it's an ongoing one. Breadman's pretty good too.
Yeah.
Who's the best golfer? I like this one. Joe Pavelski, by far the most votes, 15.8%. Tyler Bozak, 5%. Justin Schultz at 4%. Cal Clutterbuck, Mark Stone, and Greg McKegg, 3.81. Excuse me, he's the most random name on this list. Greg frickin' McKegg, former Maple Leaf. I believe he was a Maple Leaf draft pick.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
But yeah, obviously Joe Pavelski is far and away the best golfer in the NHL.
Yeah. That's maybe not the guy I would pick. Just, I don't know, just out of just looking at guys in the league, I would think someone maybe a little bit taller and lengthy might be, or even a guy like, I don't know, like Shea Weber maybe. But who knows? I mean,
somebody that can just boom
exactly
drive it 300 plus.
Yeah, and figure out the short game later. But, I mean, outside of, like, European football, I mean, golf is really, like, the other game that I know a lot of hockey players like to play. So no surprise that this is a category for sure.
Yeah. Okay, well, on to arenas and teams. This is our last section of this poll. The best visitors dressing room. We had Pittsburgh Penguins at 6.8%. The Red Wings get a hefty 23%. Vegas Golden Knights at 26%. And the Edmonton Oilers with 38%. They get by far the best dressing room there. Your thoughts on this? Yeah,
I'm kind of not surprised to see Vegas and Detroit up here. I mean, they both have relatively new arenas. And, I mean, you and I, we've been to Little Caesars Arena. It's an immaculate place. I can only imagine that the visitors' dressing room is no less immaculate inside. But Edmonton Oilers and Rogers Place, that one's weird to me. I've never really seen much of the inside, so can't really say too much.
Well, they had to make the dressing room nice, or else nobody would want to play there.
That's true.
I'm certain of it. Like, I'm certain they said, well, okay, we need to make the visiting dressing room nice so that people like our arena. Like, the fact that this is number one, I mean, you got to be thinking as a player, if you're going to go to Edmonton, at least, hey, maybe I can go there. It's a really nice arena, a really nice facility. I would think that's got to be some reasoning behind it. Okay, best jersey in the league. Quite a few original sixes, and we've got the Rangers and the Leafs and the Golden Knights all basically at 6%, and then the Chicago Blackhawks at 28.25%. I think that's 100% right. They have the best jersey. I mean, I am surprised that the Red Wings aren't on this list, to be honest. I feel like the Red Wings have a better jersey than the Rangers.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. I think the Red Wings, I mean, don't get me wrong. I like the Vegas jersey with the gold and the red trimming. But to me, I don't know. There's something about that original 6, right? When you look at the Leafs jersey, the Wings, even the Habs, I'm kind of surprised not to see on here as well. But obviously, yeah, I would probably agree. I think the Blackhawks, best jersey in hockey, but surprisingly not to see the Wings in here either.
Yeah. Which arena has the best ice? Montreal takes the cake 31%. Edmonton 16%. The Bell MTS place in Winnipeg 11%. And the Las Vegas Golden Knights with their T-Mobile Arena at 8%. So that's obviously people like playing at the T-Mobile Arena.
Yeah, I think people just like being in Vegas in general, if you ask me. But
I think you're not wrong there. Okay, the last one on this list, I think, is the biggest runaway of the entire poll. Who is the best NHL team mascot? And you've got Youppi at 2.2%, Bailey for the Kings, Youppi's the Habs, Bailey at 2.5%, the Howler for the Arizona Coyotes at 2.8%, Nash in the Nashville at 2.8%, and then Gritty at 69.72%. Honestly, I'm only surprised it's not higher.
I actually am too. I mean, you look at when he came into the league, right? They had a press conference for this freaking mascot. Philly does it right when you talk about mascots, right? I mean, the Philly Fanatic, and no surprise here with Gritty. It's just watching the content too that he puts out on social media, or at least the team does with Gritty, is phenomenal.
Yeah, I think he's up there with the best mascots in sports. Period.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, all right. Well, that's our that's the player poll. Let us know what you thought. If you think somebody should be on that poll that wasn't, hit us on Twitter at OT Hockey Talk. And our next show will be the Columbus Blue Jackets top 10 all time. It'll be a pretty fascinating list. Looking forward to joining you then. Justin, I'll talk to you soon.
All right. We'll see you.